Campus ministry is a big struggle for most youth pastors because they aren't leading from the second chair. And our goal with this conversation today is literally to get you an idea of how to lead from the second chair. A good friend of mine once told me that the perspective of doing campus ministry on high schools today and junior highs should be that of a football coach. In other words, you train them, you give them plans, you pour into them, and then you let them go off and play the game. But the coach never stays at home. They're always involved in the game. A youth pastor should be, number one, important aspect of his life should be understanding the culture of his campus, not necessarily just the community, but the culture of all the campuses in his town. So that's kind of like reviewing film as a coach. One of the ways to learn the culture is to be a volunteer on a campus. And there's so many different ways that you can volunteer. In the Northwest, that is the primary way that we build relationships with the local school. We go in and our classroom aides. We do lunchroom monitoring. We do hallway monitoring. We even do after-school tutoring just to open the doors so that we can get into the culture to learn the culture. In learning the culture, one of the most important things is to listen. So when you're at the campus, a good coach listens to what's going on around him. He listens to the conversations that are happening, and he develops a plan of action that comes out of conversations with students. He doesn't necessarily have to involve himself in the conversations as much as he has to have open ears to hear. Secondly, as you're listening to those conversations, put into perspective the backstory that might come out of it. That's one of the things that is very important to us. In Oregon, we've had a number of school shootings over the years. One of those school shootings was done by a young man in the early 90s. His name was Kip Kinkle. During that time, Kip had numerous things that were going on at home. And because of that, he brought that to the classroom. He brought that to the school. During that school year time, there were many evidences of what was going on in his life. Bullying was taking place. Numerous things were happening on the campus, and there were signs all over. I recently had a conversation with a youth pastor that had a student on that campus. In fact, during that conversation, he told me all about the things that had happened in Kip's life. The reason he knew that is because his niece was on the campus that day. She had known Kip, she had known the things that were going wrong, and one of the conversations she had after that day was, the signs were there. We just didn't take notice because we didn't know the backstory completely. Thirdly, look beyond what you see, because it's not about the outward evidence. The scripture tells us it's about the heart. So look into the heart of these students, find out the culture, review the film, and get ready to put a plan together. Putting the plan together is probably the most important part. This should not just be something that you as a youth pastor do by yourself. It should be something where you're bringing other people that are involved in the campus into that meeting, as well as your football captains. That's right, your students. They should be involved in the planning stage so that when you launch your campus ministry, it will come from not only your heart, but the heart of people that are right on campus, people that care the most about that campus setting. Obviously, Youth Alive has a number of different ways that we can come on campus and do things for the campus. One of them is campus clubs. Campus clubs have been a huge impact in our Northwest communities across the years. Over the years, we've seen so many of these clubs explode and whole cities were changed because of what took place there. But we're not just looking for just a Bible club. Some of them are social networking. Some of them are for the purpose of meeting the needs of the campus, volunteerism. Most of these things can be done very simply. They're not hard to pull together. But as a youth pastor, it's your job to make sure it's done with excellence because the culture deserves excellence. We've also done multiple scripture distributions upon campuses across the state of Oregon. What we found is that those types of distributions can be profitable to the local church as well as to the local school. You've got to do it correctly, though, and great planning is very necessary. The greatest success of campus ministry that I've had in the Northwest comes from campus missionaries. Campus missionaries are the grassroots of any campus ministry as far as I'm concerned. The job of the local youth pastor is paramount in getting this accomplished. This can't be just something that you're doing as a youth pastor just flippantly. It's got to be something that your heart is sold out to. It almost needs to become the culture of your youth ministry. Obviously, with the idea of being a coach, it's the coach's job to present the plan. And the simple plan of a campus missionary is to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love their neighbor as themselves. In other words, love God, love others. In my opinion, campus ministry is where we should be spending most of our efforts. But as a youth pastor, it's your job to lead from the second chair. If you're always making it about you and not about the students that are playing the game, then the job will never get done. But if you transform your youth ministry and plan correctly on how this can work and be effective in your community and into the culture, then the end of the game is this: souls will be won into the kingdom. The purpose of campus ministry is not to have a huge place where you can have all your ideas and concepts developed and used in a secular setting. Campus ministry's sole purpose is to win the lost and to be a light in a community where there is no light. Truthfully, this is a good idea. But the idea is leading from the second chair. Youth pastor, if I can say this about you and about the 31 years of youth ministry I've been involved, when I got it off of me and got it onto my students, then it was all about their world. I was all about where they were headed. I was all about the influence they had. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me building my kingdom. It was about building God's kingdom through the students on the local campus. Youth pastor, lead from the second chair. Don't make it about you.